Facebook Live
You're good.
setup. Are we good? Okay. Turn it off a little bit. Can you hear me? Is that better? All right. Well, welcome, friends. My name is Christine Lee, and I am the priest in charge here at St. Peter's, Chelsea. And we wanted to welcome you to this vigil tonight, Say Their Names. I was thinking about what is a vigil? And, a vigil is at its heart about staying awake and being awake. So you imagine keeping vigil at the bedside of someone that you love. And you stay at their bedside and keep vigil because you care about them and you recognize that their life matters to you. And this past week, I don't know about you guys, but Friday, after just the events of this week and the Waking Up Friday, I think for the first, I'm a pretty hopeful person, but I felt like for the first time, I felt kind of hopeless. And I could feel myself sort of shutting down, like my heart can't really take this anymore. And I'm a priest, and in some ways it's like my job to be hopeful, but feeling that hopelessness coming into my heart, and just thinking another Black life taken, a brown child's life taken, another mass shooting, just feeling how many times have we been in this place, again and again and again. And so it made me reflect on how when we begin to lose hope, that's when we start losing a part of what it means to be human. Because I think it's at the heart of being human that we hope, that's our fuel, that's what keeps us going. That's what wakes us up, in the morning. And it just made me realize how important it is for each of us to keep that flame of hope alive in our hearts, and how we need times like this to gather, because each of us has this little flickering flame, and when we're by ourselves, it's really hard to keep it alive, but to gather together and to be able to find strength. Louder? Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, I'll do this. And so I was just thinking about how, each of us has our own little flickering flame, and how hard it is to keep that flame alive when it's just you. And so even to gather, I know that there are so many things, there's a whole range of activities that we could be doing together that are all really important. But at times like that, to keep vigil together by saying these names is so critical. And so in Korean, my Korean is not the best, but in Korean, that phrase, Black Lives Matter, the word matter doesn't have a direct translation in the Korean language. And so what we say is, we say 흑인의, which means black, 목숨은, which is life, and then 소중하다, which means precious. And so literally when you translate that phrase into Korean, it is 흑인의 목숨은 소중하다, which is black lives are precious and treasured. And I love that translation, and it's on one hand it breaks my heart that it's that's something that even needs to be sort of spoken, as if that's not obvious, and yet that's the world that we live in. And so, that is why we say no to hopelessness and despair. That's why we choose not to be cynical and just to give up and say that nothing's ever going to change. But we continue to gather for rituals like this. We continue to light the flame of hope. And I was thinking about how the writer Elizabeth Gilbert says that rituals hold our most complicated emotions. And even though we don't have all the answers for everything, it's just a space to hold all that we bring, into times like this. So, as I was saying, vigils are not the only thing that we do, but they are one part of a constellation of actions that helps us bring our lights together, and hopefully the flame can burn brighter than that. So we want to just take a few moments to get kind of grounded and quiet. There's a lot of noise, literally a lot of noise in our city, but also just that internal noise, the noise of the voices in our world, and we just want to be able to get quiet. So I'm going to invite Alicia to come and just lead us in an exercise to get quiet.
Hello, friends. Can you hear me? I am soft of voice, and so I need to project. As Christine said, we are here tonight to create space together, right? To create a container for the complicated emotions that we're all feeling in this time of violence, of suffering, of injustice. We can go on and on and on naming the things that are hurting us right now. And so in this space tonight, just for a few minutes, we're just inviting you to create that space, to step yourselves into that space of quiet, of inner serenity, to find, even for a moment, peace. I will share a blessing with you. We'll do a body and breath check-in, and finally seal our time with 2 minutes of silence where we can just push away the noise, tune into what God says, and be at peace. And so tonight's offering is called A Blessing in Time of Violence, and it is written by Jan Richardson. Which is to say, this blessing is always. Which is to say, there is no place this blessing does not belong. It does not long to cry out in lament, to weep its words in sorrow, to scream its lines in sacred rage. Which is to say, there is no day this blessing ceases to whisper into the ear of the dying, the despairing, the terrified. Which is to say, there is no moment this blessing refuses to sing itself into the heart of the hated and the hateful, the victim and the victimizer, with every last ounce of hope it has. Which is to say, there is none that can stop it, none that can halt its course, none that can still its cadence, none that will delay its rising, none that can keep it from springing forth. From the mouths of us who hope, from the hands of us who act, from the hearts of us who love, from the feet of us who will not cease our stubborn, aching, marching until this blessing has spoken its final word, until this blessing has breathed its benediction in every place, in every tongue. Peace, peace. Amen. And so as you are able, I invite you to ground yourself in the space that you're in. Maybe place your feet hip-width apart, right? Maybe just let your arms relax. And since we're outside and maybe you might not want to close your eyes, find a focal point in front of you and settle into a soft gaze. Maybe roll your shoulders up and back. And maybe if that feels good, do that again. Just up and back. Turn your palms forward. And take a moment to breathe. This world is not as it should be. But here today we are gathered to be together, to find solace in each other, to find solace in a hope that says there is life, that we will not give up, that we will not faint. This is a time to be restored. So just connect with your breath. Connect with its pace and rhythm. Connect with your very being, the breath that gives you life. And be here now. You are not alone. We'll take 2 minutes right here of silence. Just check in with your heart. Be still and know.
As we keep vigil, we're going to remember some of the names of those who've been murdered, remembering that they're precious in God's sight. So I'll say a name and invite you to repeat it back. And then I'll leave a little space at the end if you all have a name that was not remembered that you would have us remember. I'll have you say that aloud and we'll repeat it back. Duante Wright. Adam Toledo. George Floyd. Tony McDade. Breonna Taylor. Daniel Prude. Elijah McClain. Ahmaud Arbery. Philando Castile. Alton Sterling. Sandra Bland. Tamir Rice. Michael Brown Jr. Eric Gardner. Soon Chung Park. Jaswinder Kaur. Jaswinder Singh. Amarjit Sekon. Carly Smith. John Weisert. Are there other names that you would have us remember together?
When we were trying to think about what names we would read out loud and say out loud, I think one thing that struck us is just how many names there are. There's so many. And so we recognize this is just a small list that speaks to so many more lives that have been lost. And so maybe we could just seal our time. I'll just say these lives are precious, and then you all can repeat after me and say that as well. And then I'll just end us with an invitation. And so God, we lift up all these names to you. You may have seen a bunch of ribbons on our gate. And what we did was, back then the colors were purple and red. And Easter, the color for Easter in the Episcopal Church, we have different colors that represent different seasons, and the color for Easter is white. And white represents resurrection and new life. And it was striking. As I was thinking about this, it struck me because in Korea, I'm Korean American, by the way, which is part of why I'm talking about Korea so much. But in Korea, in the Korean culture, at funerals, instead of wearing black, Koreans wear white. And it struck me how like one color can represent both like life and death, you know, in different cultures. But in terms of Christian hope, the Christian hope says that that though death is real, it does not have the final word, and that life trumps death, and that life comes out of death, and that's what we root and ground our hope in. So we have these white ribbons over here, and so I just want to invite you as we close, you can take a ribbon. We have some Sharpies. If there are names that you are holding in your heart, you can write those names on there. Maybe there are certain names that are particularly near and dear to you. And then you could just tie it on our gate. And we're going to have these just out during the week for our neighbors to tie to the gate as well. We also have like this paper and pen that if you wanted to write, if there's some words or a picture that you wanted to draw, you can write a wish or a blessing or something that represents that on that piece of paper. And then we thought that maybe we could laminate them and then just like hang them on our gate. Additionally, though we haven't been having services in our sanctuary, we thought that since we have a good sized crowd where we could do this, that we could let people in like 10 at a time. And what we have at the front of the sanctuary are candles, and you'll see them. There's some basins with sand in them. And so you can just go up there if you would like to light a candle as representative of your prayer or wish or blessing. You can do that and just leave it there in the sand, and we'll let those lights burn this evening. And so the third thing is that we've got Reverend Dr. Michael DeLashmit and our deacon Denise Lavetti over here. We know that this is a hard time. It's a hard time in our lives and in our world. And so they're going to be right here on the steps, that if you would like to receive a prayer or a blessing, or maybe there's someone that you would like to pray for, they'll be standing right here and they'd be happy to bless you or pray for you. Does that sound good? All right. Well, God bless you all, and thank you for coming. Again, we invite you to engage in any one of these things, and keep the faith and keep the hope alive. Blessings on you all.
Chill.